What did I get done today? Have you ever laid in the bed at night at the end of the day and realized that you just spun your wheels the whole day, feeling like you accomplished nothing? Then you think about the next day and add the list of what you didn't get done today to the list of what you need to get done tomorrow, and it just keeps growing and growing and growing. In this video, I'm going to tell you how I use the PDSA cycle paired with the National Wellness Institute's six dimensions of wellness to establish daily habits. And along the way, something surprising happened. I'll tell you the good and the bad. So come along with me as I try to establish good habits. Hi, I'm Chris Gleason, the AT student at Indiana State University. This is a little bit different than tracking urinary output. Yes, an admission. In a previous PDSA cycle personal development project, I was trying to increase my water consumption and along the way, tracking many different outcomes, including urinary output. I actually saw that as a fun project, but it was a temporary project. With this project, I wanted it to be lasting and true change in my life. So the goal was to set and stick to daily habits. So, first was the observation phase. In the observation phase, I took about a week to analyze how I was doing with my daily accomplishments. So, what I wanted to target here was the sense of feeling accomplished. What a great feeling. At the end of the day, I rated myself from a 1 to 5 scale, five being fully accomplished and one being total failure in my daily tasks. Now, I also reflected on that day and I kind of just wrote down some general words about how I felt my tasks were and my accomplishments were for the day. After the analysis of that 1 week period, I found that I had a average rating per day of a 2.8 out of 5. Fairly low. But I also had common themes like feeling scattered or disorganized and ending the day as feeling like I was unaccomplished, but not a total failure. Now, keeping in mind some context, that was a busy time of the semester where research was high and other school projects were high. So there was a lot of expectations, plus there were a lot of work demands. But either way, I was not very accomplished, to say the least. So now we take this into the planning phase. In the planning phase, what I did was set goals to accomplish every single day. And the goals that I wanted to accomplish were centered around the six dimensions of wellness from the National Wellness Institute. And these six dimensions include physical, spiritual, emotional, occupational, intellectual, and social. So each morning, I literally print out a paper with each one of these domains and I hand wrote goals for the day. At first, this was so much fun, actually. I found it as a game almost like a scavenger hunt. Go find somebody to talk to, go try to improve this person's day, do this workout, and do this for class. But as you can see, when we get into the doing phase, some things went up and some things went down. In the doing phase, I did enjoy it. So the week one rating was a 4.63. In that week, I felt like I was really having a good time. I was doing things that I wouldn't normally do, going and talking to people that I wouldn't normally talk to, and really just being intentional with my actions. And I was really feeling like a sense of accomplishment. That 4.63 rating was a really strong first week. And so it was kind of promising a feeling that I was doing the right thing. Now in week two, it dipped a little bit, but at a 4.55, that's still a pretty good rating. And all of my reflections were kind of lining up with more positives, a little bit critical in some aspects whenever I was talking about leaving things on the page that I didn't get done. But I just try to carry those over if I could to the next day. And that way I could just continue those things. Now, there were some barriers along the way in those first 2 weeks, like forgetting to print my paper or spilling some coffee on my paper. But with that said, overall, the first 2 weeks were pretty successful. Now, in week three, there was a little bit of a barrier, and we're going to call this Hot Springs, Arkansas. So, not when ISU went to spring break, but when Purvis went to spring break and I was on break with my kids, we planned a trip to Arkansas. And we went to the Hot Springs National Park and we did some hiking and we played in the hot water and we did some fishing and boating and just had a really good time. What I was trying to be is fully present there. But I found in my being present there and throwing off my routine, which again was the name of this PDSA cycle, is my scores did dip. From the 4.55, I dropped to a 3.24 rating for the week. And I did feel like I wasn't necessarily accomplished in the week. Not to say I didn't enjoy myself. I loved the time with my family and we had a blast, but it did show that that was a bit of a barrier. Now, there was a pickup in the week four, and I raised back up with the full intention that I was going to be back on the tracks with that 4.47. And it was almost like a fresh start again, if you will. So I really enjoyed getting back in the swing of things. Now, when I did the study, cycle, I found some very interesting things and maybe some modifications carrying forward. In the study cycle, I found that, well, I did accomplish the goal that I set out to accomplish, but I also sparked an interest in some other people. So my goal initially was a 4 point rating out of the five for all 4 weeks averaged together. Also, I wanted to see an increase in the positive language that I was using to talk about my accomplishments. So, did I do what I set out to do? Yes. 4.22 was the average for my 4 weeks. With that little bit of a dip for spring break, I think that, kind of was an anomaly thrown in there, but that's real life and that's what happens. But I also noticed that there were some things that I learned along the way. So giving myself grace was a huge one. Being patient with myself. Life happens, and I'm going to continue to live, even though I'm in the middle of all this. So can't just be so hard on myself, even when I don't do the things that I say I'm going to do. The other thing that was actually interesting from this whole project was one of my colleagues, as I was telling them what I was doing, they saw my paper that I was carrying around, uh, they said, "What is that?" So, we got to talking, and I told them about the class, and I told them about the PDSA cycle, and they said, "Can I get one of those?" And so I said, "Sure, I'll bring you one tomorrow." So I printed an extra one and brought it to them, and they said, I'm going to try this." Now, to be honest with you, I hadn't followed up with them because I have not seen them. They work across campus, but I am curious to hear what they got from it. But it at least rubbed off on somebody else. Now, the other thing that I also picked up was that putting out those intentional actions for each one of the six domains, I was doing things, so many more things than I thought I could possibly do in a day. So that was very fun to learn about myself, that I was doing more than I even was accomplishing that before that, and I was putting more on my plate. So that was an interesting learning about my limits. Now into the act cycle. I would adapt. So taking this, I thought was a very useful tool to set up the six dimensions and goals within each one of those. However, it wasn't always feasible to carry paper around with me. Sometimes I would forget my paper or spill something on my paper or sweat on my paper, and it was just a balled up mess in my pocket. What I think would work better is to take this and put it in an application form or some sort of phone reminder and a checklist on my phone. There's plenty of apps out there that kind of can help me, and I can set reminders along the way and the accomplishments, and even kind of you know incentivize it or maybe gamify it. But I think I would adapt this to a more modern version, a more feasible version that's sustainable on my phone, a device that I'm carrying with me all the time. The PDSA cycle and the National Wellness Institute's Six Dimensions of Wellness paired together to show me that I have new limits every day. I can go and do things that I didn't think that I could accomplish. And I feel way more accomplished. I look forward to putting this into use in the future in a digital form. And I hope you enjoyed and learned something along the way.